Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny. I wish. I'm Yvonne. I cover television for the Los Angeles Times. Oh my gosh, you guys already, I was gonna give you the grand entrance. No. Stay here. We have star and executive producer Rashida Jones.
Hi, hello. Sorry, Yvonne.
Creator, showrunner, executive producer Katie Robbins. Executive producer and director Lucy Tcherniak. And star Joanna Sotomura. It's because females are always efficient, right?
That's right. We got out here.
We're just we got to get this going.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here.
Yes, happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So AI, is a topic that is increasingly up for debate, especially in recent years. And its presence in film and television has a long history. But this isn't necessarily about the sort of fears of the advancements of technology. It talks a lot about, connection and what prevents us from connecting. So, Katie, talk a little bit about what you were interested in exploring through this series in this sci-fi premise.
A lot of things. This is a show that grapples with female friendship and loneliness and the Yakuza and Japanese game shows. But I think at the end of the day, the thing that I kind of come back to in writing all the time is sort of how do you connect the space between two heads? We are so... at the end of the day, we're so alone in our bodies, and all we're trying to do is kind of find the Venn diagram of where our experience matches with other people's experiences. And that's what I try to do as an artist is see, here's the thing that I'm thinking, are you thinking the same thing? Oh my gosh, no, you're thinking it this way. Oh my gosh, that just made me think about it in this other intense and interesting way. And I think that, technology has been this thing that has made that easier in a lot of ways and also made it harder in a lot of ways. And so this felt like a way of sort of exploring this theme that I'm continually drawn to as a person and as a writer, but using the lens of our current kind of technological landscape as a way of seeing where we are today and where might we be in the future with technology and loneliness.
How is that creatively for you? Because this is your first time doing something sci-fi adjacent. Yeah.
It was wild writing in a genre that I'd never experienced before, but also really liberating because I wasn't because it's not a genre that I spend a lot of time writing in. It let me kind of explore corners of my brain that I hadn't spent time in before, which was exciting. And I think that as I grow older, I find myself drawn to sort of bigger themes, sort of bigger existential themes, and science fiction provides a sort of format to do that in a way that because it is so big, because it is so bold, you can kind of talk about bigger ideas without them feeling outsized, because the genre itself can hold those ideas.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rashida, you're a star and executive producer. Talk to me about how this project came your way and what considerations go into you deciding to attach your name to it. What was it about this project that you wanted?
Katie and Lucy came to me. And we had a Zoom. It was in the Zoom days, the early Zoom days. I think at that time, I don't think I'd read anything. You guys sent me a deck and a playlist, right?
I think you read.
Oh no, I'd read a couple scripts. I had read a couple scripts, a deck and a playlist, but it was the whole thing was so alive. Already it was so alive. The deck was, the show looks like the deck. I mean, it really does. It's really felt like the even better version of the deck. And I like a lot of people, I love Japan and feel like it exists somewhere in my heart at all times. Every time I've ever been there, I've loved it. And I love the idea of this kind of world that doesn't exist there and hasn't existed yet, but also kind of exists there all at the same time, coming alive through this sort of like pulpy, thrillery imagining, and with a robot. And of course, like everybody, I've been dying to work with a robot, because who hasn't? But I was very lucky because Joanna was the voice and expression and embodiment of Sunny. So it made it extremely easy, and it did not feel like working with a robot. It felt like working with a very wonderful actor.
Well, I want to get into the creation of Sunny, but first I want to talk about the world building. So Lucy, I mean, often when we think about, when we see shows that tackle technology, it's sort of often set in Tokyo if it's going to be set in Japan. Here we're in Kyoto. Talk a little bit about what you wanted out of the sort of visual look of this show through that.
Yeah, sure. A lot. Well, I think a couple of things that were so clear for me. I first came on board this project in 2019 when it was before there was a script, and Katie did this incredible format outline of the show, and it was just, that in itself was such a page turner. And I think a couple of things were really clear. One is that it almost felt to me like it was based on a graphic novel that never actually existed. So it felt to me instantly like the world should be quite graphic. And also the soundtrack of the show felt really clear immediately. So I kind of put together this playlist that Rashida's talked about, which was mostly the sort of Japanese 60s pop that you hear a lot of in the show. And I think a lot of that, even if it was like subconsciously, was drawn from this wonderful challenge of creating a near future world in an ancient city, and this sort of marriage of old and new. And I was excited about like a near future Kyoto that wasn't like any of the other near future Japan shows or movies we've seen before, that really kind of like had a nostalgia for the past, both in like a lot of the sort of visual references, but also in the music. So yeah, the sort of playlist and the graphic nature, or the sort of graphic approach, came first, and then like that sort of informed some of the color palette choices, and then like I suppose the sort of architecture of like the Kyoto International Conference Center was something we found quite early, and then inspired like the look of lots of the other sets and locations we wanted to find. And yeah, it's sort of all just sort of built out from those sort of early ideas.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about Sunny, because I know first, Katie, talk a little bit about going through Colin O'Sullivan's book, The Dark Manual, and sort of seeing the potential to explore female friendship, because in the book, Sunny is a male robot. You change that up. Talk about why you wanted it to be changed, like why gender mattered in this story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I am a mom of 2 little kids. I have a big job that keeps me like ridiculously busy, and I never see anybody except for the people I work with, and occasionally my children and my husband, but not as often as I would like. And I really have been desperately missing my female friends for quite some time. And I had wanted to figure out a way to write about that. And in the novel, the thing that I was incredibly drawn to, the place, Colin O'Sullivan is a beautiful writer. The novel is actually not set in Kyoto, but Japan sort of as a whole was, as Rashida was saying, like a place that I just like come back to and adore, and was excited about the idea of setting something in. But at the core of it, there was this story of Suzie Sakamoto, who is this expat living in Japan, who has experienced like the worst possible thing that a person could imagine, in the loss of her husband and son. And the way that Suzie kind of responds to it is with like sharp elbows and this like prickly way about her, because she's worried about being vulnerable, because she's just experienced like this horrible thing. And like to open yourself up to any kind of interaction just risks more loss. Like, in this episode that you guys have just watched, Sunny says like, so love is shit, which I think is like, to me, one of the sort of like messages that that a character like Sunny, who is like so warm and open, has gotten to a place where she's feeling that way, I think it is indicative of like how hard it is to love and to lose. So anyway, I wanted to figure out how to kind of what would it take to open this character Suzie, who is so closed, back up. And I was thinking so much about my female friends and how like they are the things that like when I am turning inward, like can open me back up. And so like that was sort of like the key to both unlocking the way I wanted to tell the story and ultimately like the key to unlocking Suzie was to make Sunny a female robot.
Well, Joanna, we have to talk about your performance from the beginning. I mean, you really bring life to this robot. Talk a little bit about finding the voice of Sunny and where you took your inspiration.
Well, thank you.
This was a little weird for me.
No, this is great.
Feels like Sunny's talking to me.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was in terms of like tonally finding her voice. I think through the audition, they initially said it was like a bright, top of the line homebot that's 4 foot tall. That's like a Girl Scout who's gone wrong, something to that effect. So I was like, oh well, then it's probably up here. Mm-hmm. And then throughout the show, I was allowed to sort of like let her voice evolve with her character, which I really appreciated. Because sometimes I would say, you know, stuff like, oh, I love his shit. And it's like, no, let's bring it down. So it just, yeah, I got to be able to find her tone as the tone of the show progressed. And yeah, it's just, man, it's been an awesome ride. It's been cool.
What was it like when you met Sunny?
It was awesome. So I don't know if I told you guys this too. So initially we were on a Zoom call about like the robot and we worked with Weta Workshops and they showed me the Sunny, and my husband, who's a huge fan of Weta Workshops, like army crawled across so that we could, like, you could also see, and we both were like blown away because there was just no way that I could imagine what she would actually look like. Mm-hmm. And then on the day I went to Tokyo about 2 weeks before we started filming, and I got to meet her at our little robot dojo, we called it, where we did like all the practices and everything. And I'm from Hawaii, so I brought her a little lei to just be like, nice to meet you. But her head's so big that like the lei didn't fit over her head. So but she had like big open arms, and I like gave her a hug, and it was just like two Sunnies meeting. And it was a funny first meeting. Yeah.
Rashida, what was it like for you meeting Sunny?
I was also really blown away. I did the same. I immediately hugged her, which is, you know, that's the instinct that you have. She's pretty ripped. I was surprised how ripped she was.
Yeah, she's strong.
She's strong.
Yeah.
She's strong. That hug was strong.
Yeah.
Too strong.
What were the discussions like, Katie and Lucy, about what you wanted the look of Sunny to be?
We were definitely keen on her being sort of Zen's height, roughly. It felt important, seeing as she's got this void in her life, and it also felt sort of practicality-wise like that was sort of the right height, often the height of these homebots. We wanted her to be cute, like a kawaii expressions, and we had this wonderful Japanese illustrator called Shoko, who designed her expressions, her face. Yeah, but there also be this sort of like a clean, simple Japanese lines, I think, and there were also some like reference. I mean, we've put so many different references. It was a full range of references, but like one of them I remember being things from like 2001: Space Odyssey. That was like some, you know, like 60 again, and sort of the 60s vibe of it all.
But also like organic, like kokeshi dolls, which are these Japanese dolls, you know, like it was and vases. Lamps and vases, like we were really like,
it was a real
going
melange.
I mean, we went through like hundreds and hundreds of iterations of this,
but now I can't imagine her looking any other way. Yeah.
Well, Joanna and Rashida, can you talk to me about what was it like performing in these scenes? Like, what did it involve? Are there earpieces? Joanna, are you on set every time? Like, are you talking to nobody? Like, tell me what it was like.
I think we had very different experiences. But for me, you know, well, first of all, a lot of my scenes, I would be speaking English and the other characters speaking Japanese. And there were, most of the time I had like the fake earpiece, that's the earpiece for the show, which was not practical, and then a real earpiece. But sometimes I couldn't have an earpiece because of where the camera was. So I just had to do a scene in English and have somebody speaking Japanese and just work it out. There's no other way. But with Joanna, so she was in her own little space, your little dojo. But it was practical. She was piping in expressions onto Sunny's face in real time, and her voice was piped in. So I always got to act for Joanna. I mean, there was a couple times with just like action stuff that it would just be the robot, but like I always got to act with Joanna, which I wouldn't be able to do. I'm not a good enough actor to to act with just like a big white 4 foot tall thing.
You've
But
worked with
it's-
Muppets.
Oh, and the Muppets, yeah. But the Muppet performers are like, they're incredible. Like they and Joanna did the same, like fully animated this thing. So like I didn't really doubt. The only thing is we couldn't really banter during takes. Like
Tried to sometimes.
I tried. I was like, hey, you're like, what?
What? I can't. My mic's off. What? Yeah. My ears are
You
fans.
were taking a break from your 50-pound helmet.
Yeah.
I get it.
But it was like Rashida was saying, I was on set every day that Sunny was on set. I would do the rehearsal as Joanna, and they'd put like a little piece of tape on my tummy for Sunny's eye lines, which I forgot. And then they would wheel the practical robot Sunny on set. I would go off camera and be rigged up with this helmet that had a monitor, a ring light, and a camera that transmitted my reactions to the robot in real time. So watching this episode, I was like, that's so funny. I'm underneath the floorboards. Or like just the places they got to hide me. Or one time they built me into a wall. And like, just like, because I had to be close to set, but I really think that adds something special rather than having, nothing or a CGI robot. And it's just, it came with its own set of challenges, but I think it really, really paid off.
Do you have to have multiples of Sunny? Yeah.
You're also not allowed to touch her head.
Yeah,
Because if you have a ring or something, you'll scratch her. Very fine white coating.
Okay.
She's very high maintenance.
Very high maintenance.
Temperatures.
Doesn't do well in the Kyoto summer.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about living out there during this time? It was like a 6-month shoot. What was that experience like for you, and what did it sort of add to what you were bringing to the screen?
Oh, me?
Yeah. Let's go down the line.
Well, we shot in Kyoto in the summer, which I'm not going to recommend to anybody. Don't do that. Or don't even go. Actually, Kyoto, beautiful place. Do not go there in the summer. It's 100% humidity, like 100-degree weather.
The tourism board is going to contact us.
No, it's the best. It's the best place. No, they won't actually. They don't want people to go there. They literally wrote a letter being like, "Please stop coming to Kyoto." But it was, it was challenging. It was a big schedule. There was a lot of action. There's a lot of robot stuff. There's a lot of language barriers. So, everything that had to be said twice. Because our crew was half English speaking, half Japanese speaking. So it was laborious. And it also, I was kind of in this, like, I think we were all in our own little silos, like, you were in your own thing. And for me, it was really helpful because I'm playing this kind of, ornery outsider. And some days I felt that way because I just was kind of on my own, like trying to navigate all this stuff. But I think everybody was just trying to get it to work. And it's magical when you see it come together because there were so many components that had to work for the show to make sense. And it really does, but you don't feel like that when you're in it. You know what I mean?
Was there much time to explore outside of, the set and just go experience?
I did. I think all of us compulsively traveled whenever we had a chance to.
And it was also, we filmed in 2022 when they hadn't officially opened their borders up. So
there was no tourists.
No tourists.
Yeah.
So a lot of the places, especially in Kyoto, we were like, whoa.
Yeah.
Just empty
space.
And then we got to film in places that nobody had ever been able to film in before, like the streets of Gion, where you around Susie's house and you see her walking, and nobody had gotten to do those kinds of things. So that was amazing. And it also meant that, like, for us, like selfishly as tourists, like there were just no others of us. So
it was really
surreal.
fantastic. Often it just felt like, I remember like us sometimes just going on like little weekend scouts of our own where we would just like at midnight walk around Kyoto and we're the only ones there, and it felt like we were on a set. Like it didn't feel real, but it was.
Beautiful.
Did you master the the vending machines?
The vending machine?
Yeah.
I did. I had like my daily coffee ritual.
Okay.
So I'd get like my iced coffee
Little
at
boss.
the vending
Boss
machines.
coffee.
But there's so many different types
Yeah,
of
yeah,
vending
yeah.
machines.
Yeah.
There's other ones that I did not participate in.
My favorite is the milk vending machine, the dairy vending machine that has cheese and milk and cream. It's delicious.
Get the dairy.
As a
source.
lactose intolerant person, I still really loved it.
Well, Katie, I'm curious what it's like sort of charting the arc of an AI character. Is there any difference than sort of a quote unquote regular character?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there absolutely are differences. I think but also similarities. I mean, the things that I would say are different are just like more extreme versions of like human things. You know, I think that Sunny has a very clear motivation in Japanese, like an ikigai, like a reason for getting up in the morning. And the reason for getting up in the morning is Suzie. It all comes back to Suzie. And so humans' motivations can be more complicated. Like you can have something that you want and like that helps in writing a scene, but it can get complicated by things. And Sunny's is not. Like it can get subverted and changed by other things coming in and you know, like nefarious organizations. But at the end of the day, like that North Star is like not alterable. And so that is different. But in terms of like, you know, Sunny over the course of the season becomes similar to Suzie in a way. And it's like machine learning. Like she develops Suzie's sense of humor as a way of like trying to get Suzie to like her. But it's actually something that like people do in their friendships. Like we all start talking like, I mean, Lucy and I spent a tremendous amount of time working together over the course of this show. And like over the course of the show, I started speaking with a British accent like half the time, much to my husband's chagrin, who thought it was like a little performative, but it wasn't. It was just like hanging out with this mate all the time. And like slowly that starts to happen. You notice that we're both wearing denim this evening.
This was not
like,
planned.
there's just like you do become similar to the people that you spend a lot of time with. And so I think that like that was something that in writing Sunny, like I always sort of thought of her as a person at the end of the day because I've never experienced being a robot. So like that's the way I enter the characters that I write.
Well, Lucy, we often hear about the difficulties of, you know, sometimes working with animals or sometimes children. What challenges does working with robots pose?
I mean, I suppose we touched on some of them. I mean, I'm still, as Joanna said, like so pleased we did it this way because I think if it was Rashida opposite a tennis ball, it just would have been an entirely different thing. So I'm glad we stuck to our guns and did it like the hard in camera way. But yeah, I mean, I think it was often like one of the reasons I wanted to do this way was so that it could be as like two human actors opposite each other as possible, and that was never going to be actually possible. But being able to give notes in between takes to both actors, I was often nearer Rashida than I was Joanna, so it would often mean I'd have to either run round to your little tent where you were, or sometimes over a radio, which I hate giving notes over a radio. So it's like those sort of things. Yeah, and then just sometimes, you know, a practical robot is going to overheat, is going to not quite be able to like hold the whiskey in the way you want them to. Those sort of things. So things just took a lot more time, and that, you know, that was sometimes like not always easy to account for. You weren't quite sure how.
These are not going to market anytime soon, I don't think. I don't know if that's good news
I
or
really
bad news.
want
But
one. I really want one.
I know.
I'm sure they can figure it out.
We'll send Joanna to come live with you. For
You got it.
She's gonna hurl eggs at me. I want to talk about this episode, which I think is one of my favorites and is such a dynamic way to sort of reveal some of the answers that the audience has been having. Katie, can you walk me through landing on this Japanese game show approach to sort of filling us in?
Yeah, I mean, I always knew that I wanted to do an episode set in like Sunny's brain or Sunny's psyche, and wanted to and like practically at this point in the season had a lot of information that I needed to get across. And so it was about sort of like gaming the system. Like what would be a way to get out some of the information that I needed to get out in a way that didn't feel expository, and also would sort of allow Sunny to have her sort of like to be or not to be kind of existential crisis in a way that was like fun and joyful in the sort of like Sunny brainscape, but also could hold like a tremendous amount of like pathos and like bonkerness. And so like settled on this genre of like game show and variety show that like is so specific Japan, and also like has elements of the sort of like time period like Showa era stuff that we were starting to like play with at that point in developing the season. And like I still am shocked and grateful that we were allowed to make this episode, because it is a crazy ass episode of television. But I'm really like incredibly proud of it. I mean, I think that, you know, Makoto, who directed the episode, did such a gorgeous job. The production design in it is like extraordinary. Joanna is amazing. You guys heard at the end, like Judy Ong, who plays Noriko, singing Dulcinea in Japanese, which like was one of the most extraordinary experiences I've ever had, like as like a human being. Watching her record this, it just like, I still, every time I hear it, I weep, but I also can't believe that we have Man of La Mancha in Japanese, like at the end of this like robot show.
Rashida, we see you sort of in sort of flashback, I guess you would call it. But what was it like reading this script and just seeing what sort of what answers it fills in? How integral was that for you?
I loved watching 8 and 9, especially because, you know, even after reading it, it really, I mean, 9 comes to life hard. You know, I don't think you can really understand on a page. I feel like, you know, it really came to life. But, you know, I think it's similar to my experience doing the show. Like, Sunny's a little annoying at the beginning, and I don't want her around. And, you know, by the end, she's this kind of like fully fleshed out being with her own conflict and her own inner life. And, you know, I think it's like the right timing, because Susie's also like feeling her heart being like tugged in that direction to kind of see like what she's up against, you know, internally.
Well, there's been obviously lots of discussion about AI within both our industries. It's something I worry about. Is it something you worry about? Like how?
No, I feel very chill about that.
You're very chill. But what has it sort of opened your eyes to or illuminated, or what do you worry about?
Well, you know, there's something about the embodiment of Sunny that really took like shocked me, because the minute there is like a physical being, I mean, right now we're talking about deep fakes, we're talking about, you know, ChatGPT, but the minute there's a house for that, it's going to change everything. Like, I don't know if you've ever done VR or AR. There's something about like being in a physical space and seeing something that changes your emotionality. Like, it's not just about like sending a prompt to something. You have something to respond to that has expressions, and you get like a feeling from them. You feel compassion for this thing. Like, that to me is very, very, very scary, because if you can program that thing to elicit emotion, like I'm actually more worried about that than somebody like, you know, pretending to be a brain. You know what I mean?
Before we wrap, Joanna, can you tell me what was your favorite scene to do?
Sure.
Take about 20 minutes.
Yeah, like
There's so many fun ones, but there's obviously a lot of serious ones.
I had such a blast in episode 9 because I got to play with like every emotional color that Sunny has to offer. So that was great. And that one scene where I got to say bitch about Mixie, that was like really fun
I was
to
hoping
do
you'd
too.
say that. Yeah.
But yeah, every episode was just so different for me, and I can't think of one scene in particular, but episode 9, Yeah, that one I was really, really, really looking forward to seeing too, because like you said, Rashida, reading it, you're like, what? And that was also my last audition that I had before I got the part 2. So I had all these auditions as like Bright Sunny, and they're like, and just one more thing. And then I read that script and was like, I'm gonna have to see this in real time. So yeah, a lot of scenes from episode 9.
Okay. Katie, what can you tease for us with the finale?
A lot of profanity.
To be expected. That's not a tease.
That's a tease.
That's a given.
More of the same.
In unexpected ways.
There was more. There was more.
Yeah, no, I mean, we got some additional twists and turns. I don't want to tease too much.
Okay. Well, it was such a pleasure. Before we totally wrap, I'll just say that there are posters out front for you guys. And if you can please stay seated as our guests make their exit. But we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Yvonne. That was wonderful. Nice to see you.
Thank you guys.
You want a poster?